This is the sixth straight month of more than 200,000 net new jobs were created in the U.S. That's actually the longest such streak since the late 90s. So it actually is pretty much a story confirming what we thought about the economy, that the labor market continues to improve at a pretty decent pace. The unemployment rate, as you mentioned, did tick higher to 6.2% from 6.1%, but that happened for the best of all reasons, which is more people who had previously not been looking for work went back into the labor force.
There are those in America who celebrate what they call an improving economy and a better future for all seeking a job. Others who take numbers and decry what is a shrinking job pool and what is little more than false hope for millennials and older workers. Either way you slice this, there is a demand to bring the global scope into this picture and understand how it can and likely will change everything. That's you and me. Welcome back to MidPoint. Former member of the UK Parliament, the senior economic consultant for Euro-Pacific Capital, John Browne joins us again. Good to see you again, John. Always
Good
a
morning,
pleasure.
Ed.
Let's get down to the unemployment rate here, because you just heard that bite right there. People say the unemployment rate's wonderful. It's at a record low. Everything's great. You take a little umbrage with that whole idea, don't you?
Yes, I mean, that's the official rate, and of course government likes to have everybody feeling good. But there's a very interesting company called Shadow Government Statistics, founded by John Williams, and he calculates all these government statistics on the pre-Clintonian basis. In other words, before the heater started up. And of course, he shows the American unemployment rate at 13.9%. And that means that there are, sorry, not percent, but 13.9 million people.
A little bit different than 13.9,
and the rate at 23.2% as opposed to 6.2%. Because, of course, the rate is coming down on the official figures when you keep dropping people off at the other end. Anyone who's unemployed for a huge length of time has dropped off. Those that are in part-time employment, when they really want and need a full-time job to meet their mortgages, they're dropped off. And the people that are so-called casually attuned to the market, casually attached or marginally attached, because they aren't looking for a job, but they actually would like one. If you drop all those off, you've got a total figure in the area of 12.9 million people. And that's why there are 48 million people on food stamps, which is very nearly the total population of England.
But why then do we always hear the critics of what you just said saying, oh, come on, stop. Unemployment's coming down. It's all right. Everything's fine. You're being nothing more than an alarmist.
Well, the unemployment rate is coming down in the way they calculate it. In other words, by dropping people off at the other end. I mean, people coming into the pub come in at a rate, but you're shoving them out of the back door of the pub, then maybe the number of people in the pub decreases, but you've got a lot of people in the backyard. And so it all looks good, and that's what the government wants, the feel-good factor.
I am so thankful that I never had to leave a pub at the back door, so we're already in good shape there. The global markets themselves, certainly everything that's happening with Russia now, with the potential of war there, what's happening with the Middle East, what's happening in so many parts around the world, there are still people right now who don't quite grasp how that all fits in to what happens here today with our economy right now. Is it not fair to say that we need to keep better tabs on these countries? But if you were to pick one or two countries, one or two things that are happening in the world right now that will have an impact on our economy and what happens here and our stock market, what would that be?
It would be Japan, Germany, and the Ukraine.
In that order?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, not in that order,
Okay.
but the order I would like to discuss them. First of all,
Please.
Japan has had a QE, quantitative easing, and zero interest rate policy, ZIRP, 4 times the size of the United States on a proportional basis. Their economy is smaller than the United States, but a huge thing, and it's not going anywhere. Japan is still in a sort of doldrum slump. Then you have Germany, which is the engine of Europe, the largest exporter in the world until a few months ago when it was overtaken by China. And the 4th economy of the world is now in negative territory. And that is dragging, the whole European Union is now negative 0.1%. And that is the largest economy in the world at 17.4 trillion. The American economy now, GDP is about 15.6 billion, and China third at about 14 billion. Trillion, I mean. And so this is the largest economy in the world is now going into negative territory. And that is very worrying for everybody. The Ukraine, the big worry of that, of course, is the war risk. And secondly, the sanctions on top of a world which is heading into recession. Now Obama gets the world into sanctions against Russia. Well, the European Union has trade with Russia of about $640 billion, which is almost 10 times the amount of trade that America has with the Soviet Union or Russia. And therefore they hurt the European Union far more. And therefore, as these sanctions begin to bite, on top of a recession, it's going to go a deeper recession. And then, of course, you have the United States, and if the real inflation figure at 6.9% was published as opposed to the doctored official figure of 2%, America also would be in recession. So the big worry for the world is recession, and that is why you see the price of gold dropping, because many people invest in gold as a hedge against inflation. Other people accumulate gold as insurance against catastrophe, and they may be right.
I got about 90 seconds left or so. So here we go now. Janet Yellen is going to speak in front of the folks at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Is there anything the Fed really can do to stop what's happening?
From the two previous Fed chairmen, who are all Keynesians. But the problem is that the Fed has done its utmost to press its foot onto the accelerator. But the politicians in Washington have got their foot firmly on the brake, increasing taxes and increasing regulations, discouraging enterprise and leaving people with less disposable income. So you've got both feet on the floor, and soon there's going to be a big bang as the engine goes up. And that is what one worries about. I think the Fed has done everything it can, but the politicians are sabotaging the Fed and causing a potential catastrophe, in my opinion.
And no reason to see anything ahead. No reason to see that foot's going to come off the brake anytime soon.
Well, the reason to, well, I don't know. That's another question. The big question is the political one. I mean, will the politicians do what is right for America, or continue to do what's popular for them and getting them re-elected? The only cure to that, as I've said before, is single-term politicians and a flat tax. And until those things happen, I think you're going to be staring disaster continually in the face.
Gee, they might actually do something that's good for the people and not for themselves. Stunning, John. We may have just broken new ground here. Always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
You make me real worried now about what's in my wallet. Next hour here on, you should, you're right. Next hour on MidPoint, one man who has experienced police knee-jerk up close and personal and who believes they are far too often little more than domestic terrorists. That story and a lot more on MidPoint.